In January, the UK's National Cybersecurity Center, the Five Eyes Intelligence Network, and the FBI warned about a Chinese hacking group known as Volt Typhoon. That attacks older Wi-Fi routers in homes and small businesses, and the hackers drop in malware that cuts off or prepares for thousands of homes or small businesses to be cut off from power and water. That malware can affect other machines as it infects that router as well. So my question is to you, given that backdrop, what kinds of threats should we be considering here? And could those be the kinds of attacks designed to create problems with various parts of U.S. power and water infrastructure?
It's become clear that in recent years, China has begun to target U.S. critical infrastructure, water, pipelines, electricity. Telecom networks are hard, but there are efforts. Logistics, railroads, airports. When you look at the varying levels of security at these different entities, one useful option is perhaps not to go after the company, but to go after its employees using their home equipment, or to go after their subcontractors who might be smaller. So small office, home office routers and equipment is a useful avenue for our adversaries to gain access to their primary target.
In particular, older equipment, more vulnerable?
Older equipment is vulnerable. At this point, I don't know if we'd want to take a bet, but if it's more than 3 years old, you probably should be nervous.
Counter-espionage law of 2014 and the 2017 National Intelligence Law. Of those two CCP intelligence laws we've just talked about, in your mind, which actually poses the greatest concern?
Well, I think the Chinese Communist Party, their grip on industry is really multifaceted. You mentioned several bills and several laws. The 2017 National Security Law is sort of the paramount example. It's notable because it mandates that all organizations and all citizens have to cooperate with state intelligence efforts. The key challenge is the law's broad scope. It doesn't limit the obligation to support intelligence work within China's borders. It applies in an extraterritorial basis as well. The 2016 cybersecurity law is also pretty frightening because it requires all network operators to furnish technical support to Chinese public security organs. The recently updated counter-espionage law is another great example. The Chinese have built this overlapping network and framework of new laws partnered with deeper party state penetration throughout China's ostensible private sector, such that I think it's pretty difficult these days to even say that there's a such thing as a private Chinese company.
中国最具代表的沪深交易所一片冷清。作为南方科技重镇的深圳也没了往日人潮，和近期中国经济悲观氛围不谋而合。尤其在中国经商风险升高、外资断流情况更加惨烈。最新数据显示，去年流入中国的外商直接投资只有330亿美元，和2022年相比暴跌82%，创下当年邓小平喊出改革开放后的新低纪录。博社、日经亚洲等外媒报道，外国投资者缺乏信心，加上中国近来加强查处间谍，不止外资员工遭到拘留，欧美企业想在投资前广泛调查商业环境，都受到反间谍法影响，被迫喊卡。
我国影子规模仍然处于近年来的高位。
中国商务部长霍素出面定调，但半导体领域受到美国对中国管制更加严格的影响，已经明显远离中国。包含测试设备巨头美国泰瑞达主要生产基地从江苏转移到马来西亚。汽车产业方面，Sailing宣布停止在中国生产。
虽然同比出现了下降，但是规模上仅次于两个比较特殊的年份，就2021年和2022年。
官方虽强装镇定，但一系列政策透露出中国早已产生危机感。今年1月又放宽了反垄断法，提高市场吸引力。
国务院在昨天印发关于进一步优化外商投资环境，
移民局公布了便利外籍人士来华5项措施。
成效未知的状态下，调查显示大多数在中日企对2024年的中国经济前景不乐观，大部分企业早在2023年就削减了对中国投资或没有投资。可见，面对各类政治风险，钞票总是溜得最快的风向球。
Now, in China, the People's Liberation Army, or the PLA, already the world's largest military, is undergoing a massive expansion. In fact, it is setting up what it is calling corporate brigades. Major companies in China are setting up their own fighting forces. Reports say that at least 16 big Chinese firms are involved with the expansion, and the majority of these firms are in fact state-owned. These units, known as People's Armed Forces Departments, will act as a reserve force for China's military. The forces comprising of corporate workers will be readily available for wartime missions. China says they will also help maintain social order and respond to national disasters. and China could possibly be setting up these forces to help manage and coordinate responses to major national emergencies. The move is also related to Xi Jinping's efforts to overhaul the country's military, as he had announced earlier his goals of modernizing the PLA and transforming it into a world-class fighting force. Now, these private corporate militias have rarely been seen in China since the 1970s. In fact, they originated in the 1920s to support the Communist Party and its battles. However, when the Communist Party came to power in 1949, these units were embedded into public organizations. And these forces were said to be China's defense against the threat of imperial forces such as the United States. In fact, the number of these forces peaked in the 1950s when military tensions was high with the United States over Taiwan. And now history is seen to be repeating itself as tensions with the United States and Taiwan are once again peaking. But the move not only reflects China's desire to tighten control over society, but also puts the country on a war footing. In fact, President Xi Jinping has vowed that Taiwan will be reunified with the mainland, even if it requires using force to take control. He says it is a historical inevitability and that China's Communist Party believes that Taiwan is part of its territory.
I want to go to economics here. The de-dollarization effort by BRICS. How will you see that playing out, Annamo?
We have seen reports recently claim that Egypt has given up on the US dollar settlement for trade. So the fact is, it's not just about Egypt, but there are many other countries in the Middle East have all given up on the US dollar settlement for trade. And seems like there are a lot of events on all working together towards de-dollarizations and globalization of the CCP. So taking in mind that in 2022, the new Federal State of China fellow fighters have shared about these things of intelligence, which is the CCP wants to attack the US dollar through devaluation, digitalization, and also the internalization of the RMB, and to confront the US through alliance with the Middle East, and also with members of ASEAN, the Asian, and also the BRICS and SCO. So these are one of the ones that we have already seen in the past. So the focus for the BRICS right now is for Xi to build a new world order. So let's say if that ever happened, the US would lose its power to maintain such a massive military force to protect its geopolitical interests, as well as those of its allies. And also think about the specter of communism. That would be the whole world. So keep that in mind. And remember, the CCP had planned three major strategies to fight against the US. First is to use the CCP's digital currencies to compete with the US dollar. Second, use energies in the Middle East to affect the entire economy of the US dollar. And third is trying to pull together many of the countries, especially some of the poorest ones in the world, to form the new axis of evil.
A real concern about the Chinese Communist Party flooding our universities, our research centers, many of our academic institutions with what they term as non-traditional collectors. And many of these are wonderful, well-meaning people, but just to be clear, under Chinese law, if they're required to provide information, not only are they held accountable, but their families back home are held accountable. So they may be well-meaning, wonderful individuals, they really literally have no choice. So, Ms. Xu, as part of this, what the CCP is employing is a talent superpower strategy. It's designed to incentivize their scientists to go abroad and work to advance China's weapons research programs. In 2022 alone, over 8,000 Chinese nationals, not dual citizens, Chinese nationals either visited or researched or conducted activities at these labs, literally thousands. And we've had a private intelligence firm that highlighted that at least 150 scientists working in our national labs were recruited by the CCP to then help with their Civ Mill Fusion program. 15 of them were permanent staff. Can you just talk to me for a moment, since obviously critical classified DoD research happens at these labs, including nuclear warhead design, amongst other things. What are we doing to, and why is it so critical that we even have these people there and accept this risk?
So this is obviously a huge concern for the DoD. So one of the things that we have done is establish a policy last year that focused on academics as well as small businesses. So the policy that we have instituted literally requires every grant you're going to receive from us, you have to submit a disclosure.
I also have served on the Science and Technology Committee. I'm very familiar with the disclosures. The problem is often these agencies, National Science Foundation, the labs themselves, do not have the resources, even if they suspect something, to follow up to see if these disclosures were falsified. But my question, I want to get to, why are they even allowed into our labs? I don't think we would have done this in the 1960s, 1970s of allowing 8,000 Soviet scientists into our national laboratories. Multiple administrations have identified the Chinese Communist Party as the #1 threat we face. It's why are they allowed at all?